but like I wasn't sure. But yeah, look, I'm happy enough that it got called. But yeah, I thought that would come up a lot more actually. But I think people just were so disgusted by the quality of the attack in the game that one try in this game probably wouldn't have made a difference. If Warrington had won, like 8-0 instead of 4-0, they'd scored a try or something. I don't think it would have made it. Like everyone would still thought the same thing. It didn't matter that they didn't score. And I mean, maybe just generally from my point of view, I thought the Warrington just didn't create. Like they got to the right points, they just couldn't create it. And I thought Hull created a lot, but they just kept making errors that brought Warrington back into it. So, I mean, that was just my thought. The other thing as well is there a rule that George Williams can't go onto the right-hand side of the field? Is there like a netball thing or something? Because he's just glued to that left and nothing was happening on the left. And that's part of what I was talking about with Swift. Like if he had gone, all right, we're going to go around to the right, and he'd actually swung around to the right-hand side and taken the attack there, then something would have happened. Because I mean, Widdop wasn't getting the ball anyway. It would go to George Williams, so everything had to go through the left, and this seemed like Hull had that covered. So
that's where this sort of like lack of clarity of thought seems to be like overriding with Williams' play at the moment. We've talked loads. The effort's there, his execution was there in the England game, but in this game, it's that sort of thought process and direction just missing. And then like for Hull FC, yeah. And whenever they thought they might be able to build a bit of pressure, they then gave away a penalty, which relieved the pressure. So they were making errors when they were in attacking position, which meant all their close calls actually weren't really that. You never really thought they were going to score still. But also, every time they were trying to build something, they'd give away a stupid penalty and relieve that. And both teams just did those things too much. I can't remember where Mitch Villa-Kijapani picked up his 2-match penalty notice from for a Grade C dangerous contact charge, but that's because most of this game is eminently forgettable. The most memorable thing for this game for me was Adam Swift trying to run off a broken leg. I mean, credit him for his determination on that one. That was remarkable.
Just run it out, mate. Just run it out. It'll be all right.
Yeah. And then, like, there was a flicker of excitement near the end of the game, wasn't there? But only because it was a close scoreline, not because there was any real expectation of either side. And in this instance, it was Hull on the attack, actually scoring. One to move on from. Lots of news, though, out of particularly Warrington this week. So I think whilst we've got you on a Wire fan, let's cover some of those stories, shall we?
Yeah, sure.
So Warrington Wolves have signed Jake Wardle from Huddersfield Giants on loan for the rest of 2022 in a swap deal with Toby King, who's gone the other way to the Giants. And then apparently the arrangement will be reviewed at the end of the season. And Huddersfield fan Mark W. gave that perspective, the Giants' perspective. So he said, it's a shame to see Jake go because he's a tremendous talent and still young. But it feels to me like his future at Huddersfield was on the wings rather than at centre, so he's trying his luck elsewhere. King is a great pickup if Watson can get the best out of him, which you'd expect him to. But with the form of Leroy and Latelli, it's going to be a real struggle to break into the side this season when both are fit. Yeah, Latelli, there's a fitness cloud over after their game. We'll get to that. But what's your take on this swap deal? Do you think you got the better of it? Did it come as a surprise? What do you think?
Look, I like Toby King, and I think that, but I think they've made the decision. They're moving on. I think their decision is going to be, you got these young guys going through. We mentioned Viewless there. It feels like they want to move on from, the outside backs that were in the Stephen Price era. And they want to move into these younger guys, and that's what they've done. Because there is another story about someone else as well. But I don't know. Look, Wardle might be good. I feel like Huddersfield got the better of it because even if Toby King doesn't work out in the back line, he can play back row. Whereas I think, like Mark's saying, Wardle's was sort of being pushed out to the wing. I don't know if we need any more wingers. I think we need to know what our best positions are. Like, are we putting Ratcher in the centres now? Like, is that going to be the plan? Because I don't think that's a good plan.
I'd put him back at fullback.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem like... I think it's get through the season in a way. But yeah, do you know what? I rate Wardle and King very similarly. Wardle's slightly younger, but has a slightly worse injury record in general, I think. Toby King, can do more of a centre into second row, whereas Wardle is more of a centre into winger. I like both. To be honest, I'd be happy with both at Wigan next year because we need some centres next year and both of them can fill that gap. I see both of them having a similar weakness. I think both of them are relatively poor in their defensive reads, but I obviously there's an element of Huddersfield thinking that meant Wardle was a winger, whereas maybe Watson thinks King's attitude or something means he can work on him, whereas Wardle might be best placed somewhere else. I think with Wardle, he needs a change because he needs a change of look as much. He hasn't finished the season yet. He needs a change of look as much as anything. So maybe a change of scenery will bring that change of look. Wardle for neither of these players for next year are really nailed down. Both of them are contracted to Huddersfield and Warrington respectively, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that. And I think Toby King's going to get his chance with Latelli's injury. Jake Wardle's going to get his chance because Warrington need to play him, basically. You can't bring in a player who just wants to try for England and not play him.
It's a trial. It's a trial for the rest of the season to see whether they both like it, and then that's what's going to end up happening.
There's talk of Jake Wardle being a target for Wigan as well. And there was a lot of talk of that on Friday night at the game, actually. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how that all plays out from that perspective too, I think. Jake Wardle's future is unknown, I'd say. Shall we wrap it around with those other two bits of news stories that related to why are outside backs then? Do you want to tell us about Josh Charnley and Josh Fewlis?
Okay, so winger Josh Charnley has joined Championship club Leeds Centurions on loan until the end of the season from Warrington Wolves and signed a further 2-year deal next year. And Fewlis's one is Warrington have tied down Josh Fewlis to sign a new deal that will see him remain with the club until at least the end of 2026.
It's quite a long-term deal.
I don't know if you can write. Yeah, I don't know if you can write fullback because we don't know where anyone plays in the Warrington backline at this point. So,
as a junior coming through, he played fullback, but you don't know if he is a fullback or not. You're right. What do you make of these two things? And do you think it is just that out with the old, in with the new?
I feel like these are the moves that he wants to make as a coach. I feel like these are players that were in part of the old regime, and he's not. They're older. Let's move them on. We've got a lot of young talent coming through. Let's move on. And I think he's correct. We do have a lot of young talent. The problem is you can't just throw them all in and hope it all works out. So I hope it does. Fewlis is a great player. I think it's great. That's a really great bit of business he's done there. I mean, with Charnley, feels like Charnley was brought in as one of those last kind of pieces to try and get us over the line. At the moment, we're not getting anywhere close to a line, so I think it might be time to move him on. So I think both of them are good decisions.
Yeah, Charnley's try-scoring record should be bolstered even further than the impressive record he already has, I would think, playing in the Championship. A couple of bits around props as well, sort of aging Aussie props. So we'll combine them. Warrington have signed Canterbury Bulldogs prop Paul Vaughan on a 2-year deal from 2023. 31-year-old Australian international has also had stints with St George, Illawarra and Canberra in the NRL. And Warrington have confirmed that forward Jason Clarke will leave the club at the end of the season. Clarke, who's 32, will join up with French Elite One Championship side Lemieux Grizzlies. So he'll be playing with oh my God, names
James Maloney.
Yeah, James Maloney. But what do you make of the Paul? I guess Jason Clarke had probably come to the end of his time, kind of part of the out with the old, in with the new for Powell. So, fair enough, he had a decent stint, won a Challenge Cup. Paul Vaughan coming in, what do you make of the Italian international Paul Vaughan coming in to things at Warrington? What do you make of that signing?
Well, a couple of the on Twitter, a couple of the Warrington fans that I interact with were quite happy about it. They've seen a bit of his current form. He's been better in recent weeks for Canterbury, but look, I'm just going to reserve judgment on Paul Vaughan. I think he can be good, but he can also be a bit lazy and not and a little bit stupid. So, sorry, no offense to Paul Vaughan, but basically, he's probably not the greatest signing I've ever seen. But sometimes these things work out. I mean, Jason Clark is more of the workhorse. He just keeps turning up. Whereas, I don't know. I think Paul Vaughan was kind of an impact player that lost a bit of impact recently. But we'll see how it goes. But I'm not expecting him to be, pushing for best prop in the Super League or anything like that.
This new look pack for next year is all about impact with those front rows, though, isn't it? So I think it fits that mould that the Wire fans have been crying out for, and Powell and Fitzpatrick have seemingly delivered with the signings. One unfortunate bit of news is Joe Philbin's been ruled out for the rest of the season through injury, so he left the field with a knee injury during the first half of the game on Friday, and unfortunately that looks like his season done. So that is a shame for someone who was hoping to play for England in the World Cup. But yeah, lots going on at Warrington at the moment, isn't there? Just in general, how do you feel about that? Because there's been talk about the players being unsettled. As a fan of the club, I know they're not like your mainstay club, but you still care about what goes on with the club after all these years of following them. As a fan of the club, how do you feel about this instability? Does it translate through, do you think, to the fan base, all these changes and talks about this sort of stuff?
This is the thing. When you change your coach and your coach comes in and promises that he's going to get you to the top, and he has to, sort of break a few eggs to get there. It feels like there's some changes here just for the sake of making changes, in my view. But it has made things unstable, and I mean, you can blame the playing group, you can blame whatever you want for their poor form, but I mean, at the end of the day, when you get a new coach in and he wants to change everything about the way they're going to play, they're going to be struggling for a while. So it just feels, I don't know. I think I've commented on this before. I mean, was he the right choice as the coach? Like, are we going to get the rewards later on? What's going to actually happen? I don't know. But I mean, I'm hopeful that all these changes and everything sort of builds them as a better club, and then we can finally, get there. And, it's obviously not going to happen this year. But it also is hard. It's hard to take because, I mean, apart from a very poor performance in the final, we were third last year. You know what I mean? Like, we were close. We were almost there. I felt like, just couple of little pieces and we get there. And then all of a sudden we've kind of blown the whole thing up and we've got to rebuild. And, I don't know. They're just not playing to the potential that I think they can play. And I don't know whether that's because they're trying to play in a different style that they're not familiar with, or, maybe we don't have the right players to play the way we want to play, but it just doesn't. I mean, you saw the attack. There's no one knows what's happening. It's just lost.
It's either the attack's completely useless or the defense is completely useless, or both are pretty useless. You've not had all parts of the game all together in any game this year. I've been thinking about the Powell appointment and about the unsettled nature of the players and about moving on so many experienced senior players. And I'm looking at a player group that people talk about underperforming or what have you, because, you look through them, there's lots of international honours, there's lots of people with individual honours, there's lots of people with great records, there's lots of people who've won a lot of stuff, and there's lots of people who've won stuff with Warrington in recent years under previous regimes. So I wonder if they're bringing in a coach to be kind of like the super coach who'll transform and be the final piece of the puzzle, but that coach has actually never won a final. Maybe, and then, get off to a bad start. You will have those players who can turn around and say, well, I fucking won the Challenge Cup, mate. You haven't. Like, that breakdown, I can see how that breakdown could happen within that group, within those circumstances. So this wide-scale reset, even if you think it is just about some of it is bringing in people just to replace people just for the sake of the changeover, I think that changeover obviously is needed because that group of players and this coach can't do it together. And so... with so many players being off contract, it's that rare situation where you can change all the players rather than just change the coach, which is normally the opposite of what we have. That's my take on it. I don't know if you think that's fair or not.
Look, yeah, no, I think that's fair. It's frustrating. That's all. It's just very frustrating when, if